Houston at Llewellyn's house on the 15th of, July 1999. And we're just gonna talk to everybody and see what comes out.
And Charles is on the back end of this. So
Whoa.
I think he needs to be, we need to get him up here.
No.
She can't, well,
The reason
he doesn't have that much film, does he? You can't,
No, this reminds me of Mummy and Ninny and Auntie Dick. And that reminds me of when we were all in Harlingen and I wanted you all to drive her car.
Oh, yeah.
Filling station.
She looked over at us.
I was,
She said, we look like two little old
yeah.
I was following.
How rude.
Lauren was driving and I was following Mom. And the first thing you did was drive into the wrong place. So I drove in behind you. And as I got about halfway there, you all passed me. So I turned around.
We were trying to lose you.
And when I got to a certain place, you all were turning to try again. And you all look just like Andy and Minnie. And I thought to myself, all of a sudden, we have reached that age. Because you all were sitting kind of down like this, and you were smiling.
You know what's scary? That was 5 years ago.
Oh, how sad.
At least.
Oh gosh! And when we finally drove into the filling station, we were all laughing so hard that everybody in the whole filling station just would stop.
No, you wait on. No.
And look. Oh,
Well, that reminds me of our trip to Colorado.
Yeah.
And we had to churn in the Chinese restaurant every time we went anywhere in Durango.
Those people would stand at the window. Here they come again.
They're not going to stop and eat food.
Because nobody was ever parked in the parking
I
lot.
thought it was a drive-through. Couldn't find the window.
And it didn't make any difference who was driving. We missed the turn every time. And turned around in the Chinese restaurant parking lot.
Well, you know, poor Ann
Durango.
can't leave San Antonio.
Because
I can get there, but I can't leave.
She couldn't get out.
I get
I
all
was
that
worried about
and
her.
just go around.
They were going to go to see Sharon. I told her, well, I don't know if you and Georgia will ever get out of there. I don't know who helped you out, really.
Well, we stopped every 15 minutes, and we stopped at the same filling station 3 times. And he said, and the man finally said, I'm going off work in about 5 minutes. I'll take you. You follow me. And he said, oh, thank you so much.
oh,
And
golly.
so you did.
Yeah, and we followed him. He got us.
And you really were able to follow him, too.
Yeah, we did. We did very well.
Oh, gosh.
Finally got out of San Antonio. Thank heavens. Oh, I hate that town.
Yeah, it's a good thing we never did decide to be pilots, Charles.
Oh my gosh. Can you imagine?
We'll
Can
still
you
be
imagine?
circling.
Oh, that's like that. I think it was American Airlines. The guy landed at the naval base instead of
Oh, yeah.
instead of the airport. And everybody on the plane was going, where's this? Well, this isn't right. Can you imagine how embarrassed that
yeah.
person was?
Poor
Oh my
thing.
gosh. Well, I wonder what he's doing nowadays.
Remember the little old ladies I cut out the clipping about the little ladies that drove on the road and it
Yes.
ended up being a runway?
It was a runway.
Oh, yeah.
I can still picture that happening. I'm waiting for that to happen.
Oh, gosh. She hadn't changed a bit.
help me remember. We got to call her tonight and remind her that we're coming tomorrow.
Are we
and
gonna
then
go to her?
hers
apartment?
first? I had such a good time when I went over to hers. Oh God, because you know,
Oh, you went to
finally
her.
found, yes, finally found it, and I said, well, I see you have a concierge, something or other, apartment. And she said, what? I said, well, where's the concierge? She said, well, I didn't know I had one. I wonder what he does. After I'll have to find out. And I said, well, I read the sign, and she said, where? So when we drove out, I showed her where it says, whatever it says. And she said, well, my goodness, I'll have to find out what that means. Oh,
So
goodness.
cute.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I just think, Charles, you need to, when you get to Victoria, really, if you're going to come to Dallas, try to have lunch with us. Now, it might be an embarrassing occasion because we will eat out. And you will be somewhere with me.
With four of us.
Crazy
Oh
people.
my gosh.
No. It was during the war. I wasn't 12 years old during the
That,
war.
it hasn't been that long, did it?
It has. I have not seen her
Well, I'll be.
since,
Well, we went to,
Last summer.
no,
Oh.
we went to, I guess it was Nini's funeral, and that's,
And
that-
we
that-
saw her at Andy Diaz one time. Remember?
yes, we did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Corian and I had seen her
Yeah, we
there,
we'd seen.
and Nenny was there.
I think I must have been 9.
What, and Bubba, what's his name was there? Her brother. Buddy.
Oh, Buddy was there.
He reminds me so much of,
Uncle
well,
Bubba.
he was just exactly like Uncle Bubba.
Is he still living?
No.
No, in
he
fact,
just-
the conversation at the meal we had with Fireland's children and nieces, a lot of it was about them going through their daddy's stuff and how many pairs of red socks he had, or
Yeah, he had like 20 pairs of red socks.
Was he a golfer? I mean, why was he?
They didn't know why he had
They didn't know what.
that, and he had
And
lots of things.
he had like 50 boxes of Miracle Grow. You know,
What are they
it
going to
was
say
like-
about
it was
me?
like-
You better watch out what you put in your potty.
it was like going to a hardware store. All these boxes of Miracle Grow,
That's why I
and
told you
didn't even have a garden.
deep down, didn't he? That's why you do these things before your trips. See,
Well,
because you're afraid.
Let me tell you, I just got hysterical one day telling some
Wonderful.
people that I work with that when I die and people and my poor children have to go through all my stuff, they're going to find all this stuff that I have saved for someday. I'm gonna do, all these craft things, I mean, fabrics and all this stuff that, one of these days I'm going to do. And one of these days will be, they're going to find all this stuff packed away.
Well, you keep it in little piles, though, which is nice.
Yeah.
But I have to keep moving it, you see. Like it was all in that new room. We still were calling
The
the
new
new room
room.
that we did in the 70s. The
Yeah.
new room. so
Once you have a name,
Dave said, "What are you going to call the new room?" And I said, "Well, call it the new room." So it's the new room.
Ah, okay. Well, I'll know where to stay when I'm
But when we
gone.
tore that down, I had to move all this stuff, I forgot.
Well, Tootie, when you
That's great.
I went into the bathroom to wash my face, and there was a praying mantis sitting there, about 4 inches long.
Big one.
Not green, but brown.
wow.
Not that a green one would have been more welcome, but I really didn't like
Brown ones are scarier.
And I thought I'll just shut the door and he can just have the bathroom until the men come back to finish the addition. And if he's still alive, they can get it out. So then I got thinking in the middle of the night, when I have to go to the potty, I do into the bathroom, into that dark bathroom, and sit down next to the praying mantis because I didn't know where he might be at that time. He might be on the potty too. And you know, my
Well, that would
brand
scare
new-
him to death, wouldn't it? Whoa! Holy mackerel! That'd be like a horror movie. Just think of him.
I hadn't thought of it from that angle.
You can make a movie out of that.
That's an idea to bug your life.
And so I thought, okay, I've got to get rid of this thing. And I couldn't use my downstairs potty because the Kohler toilet, you know, the new Kohler toilet had already broken. So, and I hadn't fixed it, still isn't fixed yet. But anyway, so I went down to the kitchen and got a mason jar and came back up. And you know, those praying mantis can see you coming. Because the minute I walked in with my mason jar, he knew what I was going to do. And so he crawled up on the tile, and that was even better because he had been not on a flat part of the sink, but on a part that if I had tried to put the jar down, he could have crawled out, you know. So when he crawled up on the tile, I, you know, came over very quickly and covered him. And then
what?
slid a piece of paper in there and got him trapped in that jar and went rushing down to the front door. Because I wanted to put him in my garden because I knew he could do some good out there. And so it was so late that the light in my front porch light had already clicked off. You know, it's on that automatic timer. So in the dark, I didn't want to just throw him out because I didn't know whether he'd jump back in. So I went to that little cutout part of my front porch and held the jar out like this. Removed the paper and, you know, did like that. And then, you know, back in the house, shut the front door, and on the way back up the steps, I happened to see he was on the edge of that jar. Well, I almost killed myself jumping. Thank goodness I wasn't very high up on the steps, you know. And I went racing back to the front door, opened it, and did like that, and then slammed the door, turned the light on to check, and then I went racing back up to the bathroom, stood up on the bathtub ledge to inspect myself in the mirror to make sure that he was not, you know, that he had not ridden back into the house on me, you know, because I couldn't see him. It was dark. And of course, he was not there.
You know, it might have been easier just to open the door and set the jar out there and then
Yeah,
just come back in.
Well, you know, that's what I should have done.
You needed that
Or
jar.
just throw the whole jar out.
Yeah, she's being so nice.
Oh, God.
Keep that jar. Might have to put some preserves in it. Well, I know how to make plum preserves.
You sure do.
Benny gave me that recipe.
You know, Minnie made the best plum preserves. She made plum preserves when I was out there.
Well,
Even
it's
when I lived with them
a
for 6
secret though,
weeks.
because
Well, she gave me the recipe and we did it.
it only took 800 trips to get. What was it that?
We used everything. We
Well,
used gelatin. We used
We
sugar
finally,
gel.
we finally just resorted to wheat paste.
We
A little
Now,
Elmer's
what
glue.
is that stuff, though? There is a name for that stuff.
Sure gel.
Sure gel, is that it?
Yeah. We used
Well,
it.
it sure isn't.
Oh,
Well,
well.
I have the recipe written down in there like she told it. Well.
Well, she made the best plum preserve.
Of course
I
she
remember
did.
them from when I
And
lived with
remember
them
the
for 6
pear
weeks.
preserves? I don't know who ever made those.
That was Mama.
Mama.
She had pear
I
tree in her
loved
yard.
I used to always think that I would enjoy those pears. And when we start to come home, I just really wanted to take a pear with me, and I never did like
That's
to eat
because
those pears.
That's because I
They
picked all of
weren't,
them.
they weren't good to eat.
No, they weren't.
They really weren't good
And I
to eat. They
kept
were only
trying
good
to like them.
you know, to preserve.
Yeah,
or
real
something, 'cause They
grainy.
were awful.
And hard. I think.
Hard, and they didn't have a good taste. In
Yeah.
fact, they kind of had a thick taste.
Charles and I were talking about that this morning, how he used to hate to go to Floresville. You know, he just hated to. And I couldn't remember, I remember having a good time there, but I did start thinking about how I hated thinking about having to drink that water. And the smell.
I know.
That was
horrible.
the pits.
That was terrible.
One time we were all at Mama's, or maybe I was there. It was just maybe it was just you and me, Corinne. I guess Mommy and Daddy must have been at Scott and White for one of her checkups or something. And I left the gate open, and Big Enough got out.
Big enough was
Big
what?
Enough
The
was
horse?
Jimmy's horse.
Oh, Jimmy's horse.
Oh,
And
God.
Were you in
let-
big enough trouble then?
I was.
Boo. Lord have
You know, I didn't know anything about gates. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
I didn't know you were supposed to leave the gate open.
Well,
I found out. They had to go in the car to get him.
where was he?
I don't. He was visiting someplace. I don't
He
know.
probably found a mayor.
Well, they found him and brought him back. Visiting her once, but I just remember I was on the front porch and she was in the doorway, you know, greeting us, I guess.
Who was she anyway?
I think she was Mama's sister, wasn't she?
I don't remember.
I thought she was Mama's sister. And
That wouldn't be in the book then.
I don't know. And Uncle Ed, do you all remember Uncle
I
Ed?
know that name.
Mhm.
Well, what was the man's name that had the white beard?
Why?
Mr. Bailey?
Santa Claus.
No, I think his name was Mr. Bailey. And I don't know how he was connected, but I was out at a house that was not in town. And they had those chairs, those lawn chairs that were made out of bent limbs, you know.
Mhm.
The whole chair was constructed out of, they had those, and that was the first time I'd ever seen chairs like that. And Mr. Bailey was sitting in one of them. And I remember him because he had all that white beard and his hair was white and kind of wiry and everything. And I remember Uncle Ed because he had the biggest ears I've ever seen in my life and this long nose, and he had, you know, big brown spots, you know, all over his skin, and you know, deep
Wasn't
deep
he the one that
creases
tried
in-
to teach us how to milk a cow?
He might have been, you know, and it was probably that same visit.
It was, because I remember
You
trying
remember
to
that?
milk the cow.
Yeah, well, he didn't show up anymore when y'all came, probably.
Probably did.
After he tried to teach you to milk the cow.
Well, that was just,
The cow left home.
that was something.
Yeah.
What do you remember about learning how to milk a cow? Did you ever learn how to do it?
No, but we got, you know, I can remember getting everybody's shoes wet.
They probably taught you how to turn it, and you.
I don't know.
liked
I
doing
mean,
that.
it worked, but I never could hit the bucket.
He had the cleanest kitchen on earth. There was not a kitchen anywhere on the face of the earth.
Have you looked at that one?
Listen,
No, it's dirty.
no. Do you not remember Auntie Betty's kitchen?
I remember her. I don't remember
It
the
was
things
sterile.
like that. I remember like Billy. I remember her rolls.
She
And
had-
all
I
the
remember.
good food.
I remember she had you could have performed major surgery in her kitchen, and there would never have been any infection because it was sterile. And her pantry, she had a pantry, and when you walked into that pantry, it had this wonderful smell.
I wonder what she put in it.
I don't know, but it just
Some
had the
herbs
most
or something?
wonderful smell. No,
I
it
don't
wasn't.
remember that.
It
Couple
wasn't.
of rolls.
No, it
Rolls.
wasn't that kind of a smell. It was just clean, and she had all of these pots and pans that just glistened. I remember that and her hydrangeas in the backyard.
Good.
We called her
Wow.
Auntie Bitey because her name was Byra. And couldn't say Vira.
So we called her Minnie.
No, Louise called her Mimi because she lived with her when Mommy was in the
My
hospital.
goodness, so you're gonna go.
I mean,
Why did she call her Minnie?
first?
Because she
because-
lived there?
Yeah, I mean, she was calling, I mean, it was like money. I mean, Louise was so little. You know, Auntie Betty came and stayed with us while Mommy was in the
I
hospital.
know, bless her heart. I know she's in heaven right now.
She is.
Because she had to take care of me.
Because for how long? 6 weeks?
I don't know. I know it seemed like
And
a year. to
Louise
her.
started talking. I mean, she started trying to talk the way babies do. And
We're gonna go.
you
to,
know, Dada and
other
Mimi, I mean, those were the first sounds. And so she called Auntie Betty Mimi. But we called her Auntie Betty. But what were the other names? What were the other cousins? Charles, what did
But anyway, when you come
the other cousins call your grandmother?
we'll have a safe.
Do you remember Betty? They didn't
Oh, they
call her
did.
Auntie Betty.
Oh, okay.
Betty.
They called her
I
Betty.
was Sister Vira.
Well,
Big
not
sister?
but did
No.
the younger ones call her Sister
I
Vira?
always called her Sister
No,
Vira.
Mommy called her Betty.
That's why y'all call her Auntie.
And that's why we call her Auntie Betty. I wonder if Jimmy gave her the name Betty, Auntie Betty.
Just think of that word.
What?
Bitey.
Because,
Because-
your mother called your grandparents Big Mama. Wasn't that
Big
right?
Mother. Big Mother.
Big Mother
Uh-huh.
and Big Daddy.
Uh-huh.
Wasn't that what?
No,
Yes.
that was what he did.
That's what
he
Charles-
called it.
You're
he
the one
called
that
them
did that.
Big Mother and Little Mother. So he
Oh,
called.
Lois was Little Mother?
Yes.
I don't
he
remember
called,
that.
Yes. He called Auntie Betty Big
Big
Mother,
Mother.
and he called Lena Lois Little Mother.
Well, did he have Big Daddy and Little Daddy?
I don't know.
You did?
And that makes sense.
My spoons used to
And
call
then-
me Big Mother.
Now Jimmy called Auntie Doe.
Dope.
And
Dear
he
Doe.
called Little Auntie. Didn't he call her
Boo Boo.
Boo Boo or
It
something
was
like
Boo
that?
Boo. Yeah.
Either Boo or Boo Boo. I don't
It
know.
was Boo Boo.
And we'll have to ask Violin. See, Violin will remember.
Oh, yeah.
She'll remember who
Who
started
named-
all of this,
uh-huh.
and she'll probably have other names because we called it was Auntie Betty, Nene, Ninny,
Lenny.
Auntie Dick, and Little Auntie,
Uh-huh.
and Uncle Bubba.
I'm the only one that changed. I mean, mine was different because I called her Mimi instead of Auntie Betty.
Yeah.
But I remember at these things, the men would get together and they would bring in the sawhorses to the living room and the planks, because Papa always kept the sawhorses out in the garage, and the wooden planks, and there'd be 2 planks that they put on top of that, and then they put the tablecloths down
And the
and
chairs.
set them. And there were, you know, I think they had, you know, Mama's round pedestal table in the dining room that they'd set, and then this long table, and I think that all the children sat at the long table. Do you all remember that?
I think they fed us outside with the sheep.
And all
If
I
they were
remember
smart, they
is that after we ate, all of, you know, the sisters and Lena Lois.
Well, Charles' daddy, and I remember Uncle Cecil with all 3 and sleeping in the same bed, like this. I mean, just snoring to beat the band. And
Yeah.
they slept
That's right.
3 men in a bed.
No.
I mean, now that would have been a great video.
And what I remember is that all the women would be cleaning up,
Laughing.
laughing, they'd
Fannies
just be
on.
giggling hysterically.
How did they sleep through that?
I don't know.
They were so full.
But it was just a wonderful, you know, it was just a wonderful day.
Yeah.
It was just a great time. Wonderful.
And somebody
family.
else was out in the garage.
They were out in the garage drinking
Well,
booze. I know exactly
That was
what they
little
were doing.
Andy and Uncle Bubba.
Uncle
Who
Bud,
else?
yeah, probably Daddy. Having a couple of
Uncle
shots.
Jay. Uncle Jay.
Uncle
Uncle
Jay
Jay
having a little shot
and
of
Jimmy.
bourbon.
Jimmy, you know, was out there.
Well, I'm
I don't
sure.
know.
Because he was the bad boy.
Well, I must have been hiding out there too, because I remember what they were doing.
See, yeah,
You were the bad girl.
I was the bad girl.
All right, so Charles, how do I know if it's working? Is there a red light on?
Yeah, it's on. It's working.
It's on? Okay, so I want to know, how did the Raines family get such a reputation for being drinkers?
Well, what I was about to tell you is that nothing that was of any pleasure at all at our family was permitted. It was a sin. It was tolerated at times, but every time that church would open, we would be there. And we used to sit in the back of the room, and the kids, and during the service, and try to write down all the things that were a sin. And, we would have pages. You can't believe what wasn't allowed. This preacher we had he was the greatest old man in the world, typically over-fat, overweight Baptist preacher, because he would always come by and eat fried chicken at the ladies' houses that he knew cooked the best fried chicken, and that was quite often my grandmother. But we would sit there and fill out pages on what was a sin. Things like, well, of course, movies and dancing and drinking and cursing, but one of the good ones was mixed bathing. That was a sin. And one Sunday he preached a whole sermon on the sin of owning property at the bay, at the coast. He said that people who own bay houses, they go down and they end up staying on Sunday and missing church, and therefore it's a sin. Well, my dad, being a deacon, got a little upset about that and had words with him. And that really upset Daddy, that he considered owning property at the bay a sin. But that was a good environment to grow up in. I think my grandmother played the organ there all her life. And I was permitted occasionally to go with her. When I was taking piano lessons, I was totally untalented, but I studied a lot. And I could go with her sometime on Saturday. She would always practice on Saturday what she was going to play on Sunday. She didn't need the practice because she knew all that stuff by heart, but she always wanted to practice every Saturday for the Sunday service. And I went with her occasionally, and that organ was just, I love it. That was a magnificent machine with all these keyboards and stops and pedals, and she kind of showed me how to operate it. And I don't know if you remember, but in the 60s, there was a popular song, Del Shannon did Runaway. And it had an organ solo in it. And I'd gotten the sheet music, and I'd been trying to learn it on the piano, but it was really intended for the organ. And the reason she would go on Saturday is because the church would be deserted. And so I was over there, and she had to go use the telephone or something. And while she was gone, I started playing this Del Shannon rock and roll on the church organ. And I cranked it up to about 9, and it sounded good. It was going, and the windows were starting to rattle a little bit, but it sounded pretty good. Lo and behold, the preacher decided to come by and pick up a book or something in his office. And when he walked in the front of the church, he heard this rock and roll emanating from the sanctuary. Well, he went ballistic. And he charged into that sanctuary, and of course I couldn't hear him because the organ kind of faced the choir. He came up and yanked me off the bench, read me made me kneel with him and pray for forgiveness.
Oh, Charles.
My grandmother was humiliated. I was scared to death, and from that day forward I was forbidden to get close to that organ.
How old were you?
Oh, I was early high school, I think, junior high.
Oh my.
Totally
word.
irresponsible. Turn it off.
Is it Amaryllis? Or-
Spider lily.
I don't know.
They're not really amaryllis.
But yeah, this grows it out he said when he brought his men over here, they said, how many days are we supposed to be here? What are we gonna try to do here? But anyway, they cleaned it out, really, was what they did. And kind of flustered some things.
Did they take your magnolia in?
I didn't have a magnolia. But this one has come up by itself over here. In the middle of the fence. I'm not sure, you know, it's not gonna work
So the
there.
magnolia that we cut belonged to the person back there.
That's
It just
right.
happened to be.
Yeah, this is Lou Aaron's backyard.
This is my herb garden.
Lauren, that's looking good now.
Yeah.
It really is.
It needs to be watered
Oh,
today.
and your forget-me-nots. I
Is that what
tried,
that is?
yeah, and I tried so hard to grow forget-me-nots.
Well, see, I forgot what they were.
Forget?
Forgot about there. 6
beautiful.
tomatoes.
See, I wanted some of those by my stone because the blue in that stone looks so pretty.
Is this the spearmint?
I've got lemon balm and
This is lemon, right?
that's lemon. Yes, is it today? I think so.
We should have done this years ago when we had kids.
Oh no, they wanted to play
They would-
baseball back
They would have thrown everything down. But they couldn't because there was so many trees.
Yeah, well, and they weren't the same trees. You know, the trees have changed around here. See, my other mint, my spearmint has not done well. I've had it over here. I don't know why.
It's not, it's not sunny enough there.
And they told me to put it in shade, so I think that was the right
That
thing
smells
to
so
do.
good.
I need to dig it up.
I guess I should dig it up and put it on the, just dig up.
See, all that mimosa. Little mimosas everywhere. You need a mimosa tree?
We planted a royal poinciana, and I bet that, well, it's been a green for those, but we don't have any places, you know, all the other stuff we wanted, but when you plant it, so planted it, about July. But it's getting wrapped up. I don't know, I'm going to try to put it on it. So we have some mild rain, but, we might be good. I don't think it's fine if it's not going to cold.
Good gardening. That anaqua tree died. So, along with all the herbs and stuff, I have a tree coming up. Now, do y'all think Charles needs a little refresher?
Yeah, looks like you could use that.
It's getting pretty hot out here.
When I was staying with Mama as a little girl, and I'd go outside, because we were always wanting to go outside, she'd say, honey, wear my bonnet. You're going to ruin your skin. And she was right. You know, she went out with gloves on, long sleeves, and her bonnet that had you know, it came out like this, and it also had that ruffle around the thing to
You
protect
could barely
your
see
hair.
it. It was like tunnel vision.
And I bet if she were alive today, her skin would look younger than mine does right now because she took care of it and I didn't. And if I'd just known then what I know today, I would have listened to her. I wish I had.
We wouldn't have to be using
Wouldn't have
this.
to use that stuff.
We'd be just using ivory snow.
Is the trash here?
That's it right there. That's pretty smooth stuff.
That fancy milk.
Johnny said, Mother, for my birthday, I want you to make those like round.
The white rose.
And I said, he just wanted to remember, you know. He just wanted,
Well, what do you usually do?
I always put brand in mine.
Oh, and they're delicious.
And he said, I just remember them, but he said before everybody got so
Healthy.
And I said, well, Johnny, I don't put the brand in because it's healthy. I just
That's like the way it is.
and I said, besides, I said, I got that recipe from one of grandmother's friends. You know.
But you do it the way
It's
she,
from
you
Lowe's.
have to get the Crisco. Use Crisco like Mommy did.
Well, see, Ms. Rumbeau's one who used brand.
Oh.
Ms. Rumbeau always made brand rolls. I don't know what she did for.
I'm gonna keep my glass if that's all right with y'all.
Well, I hate to say anything, but I just can't stand that.
So, hands off my glass.
Well, if you're gonna keep yours,
Oh,
I'm gonna keep mine.
he is swimming again.
All right, look, Lauren, this is mine right here.
Okay.
Now, how are we gonna tell each other's apart?
You have to remember where you sat. Can you remember that?
No.
Oh dear. Well, you won't know.
So what are y'all gonna do?
Glad you came.
Wave like the politician.
Well, say something.
It was great seeing you, Charles.
Come back again.
If we come out
anytime.
there, we want to go to Disneyland.